Have you ever noticed that the harder you try to focus, the more distracted you become? What if distraction is not the enemy, but a messenger? And what is the very thing you keep blaming? Your phone, your workload, your restless mind is not the real problem at all. What if the real distraction is the belief that something else, somewhere else, would finally make you feel complete? Welcome back to Daily Mindfulness Practice on L&E channel. Today we explore something almost everyone struggles with, yet few truly understand: overcoming distraction. Not by force, not by productivity hacks, not by shaming yourself into doing better, but by seeing clearly. Because sometimes the mind that wants to eliminate distraction is itself the deepest distraction. Take a slow breath with me. Have you ever sat down to work, opened your laptop, and within minutes found yourself scrolling, checking, clicking, switching tabs, answering messages you didn't even need to answer? You promised yourself just 5 minutes. 45 minutes later, your mind feels scattered, slightly anxious, and strangely tired. Distraction feels like movement, but inside, it often comes from avoidance. We don't get distracted because we're lazy. We get distracted because something inside feels uncomfortable. Maybe it's boredom. Maybe it's fear of failure. Maybe it's uncertainty. Maybe it's the quiet voice whispering, "What if I'm not good enough?" In the Satipatthāna Sutta, the discourse on the foundations of mindfulness, the Buddha speaks about observing the mind as mind, not judging it, not fighting it, simply knowing there is restlessness in the mind, there is craving in the mind, there is aversion in the mind. Notice the simplicity. He does not say, eliminate restlessness. He says, know it as restlessness. What if overcoming distraction begins not with controlling the mind, but with meeting it? Another question for you. When you reach for your phone, what are you actually reaching for? Connection? Relief? Stimulation? Escape? The device is neutral. The impulse is not. In the Dhammapada, it is said, the mind is restless, hard to control, swift, alighting wherever it wishes. Yet it also says, the disciplined mind brings happiness, restless by nature, capable of freedom. Both are true. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine you are writing an important email. Halfway through, a thought appears. This is not good enough. That thought creates a slight tightening in your chest. You don't want to feel that discomfort. So without thinking, you open another tab. Distraction is often a strategy, a way to not feel what we don't want to feel. If you pause at that moment and gently ask, what am I avoiding right now? Something powerful happens. Awareness enters, and awareness changes everything. The more you try to suppress a thought, the stronger it becomes. Have you ever tried not thinking about something? It's like trying not to hear a loud noise. The effort itself keeps it alive. In Buddhist teaching, this is connected to tanha, craving. Not only craving for pleasure, but craving for things to be different than they are. I want this feeling to go away. I want this task to feel easier. I want to be more motivated. Craving doesn't only chase pleasure, it resists discomfort, and that resistance creates tension. That tension fuels distraction. So instead of asking, how do I stop being distracted? Maybe we ask, what am I unwilling to experience in this moment? Stay with that question. Let's go deeper. Distraction often arises in 3 main forms: chasing pleasure, escaping discomfort, and seeking identity. Chasing pleasure is obvious. A quick scroll, a snack, a video, a notification, small dopamine sparks. Escaping discomfort is subtler. We distract ourselves from confusion, from slow progress, from feeling stuck. Seeking identity might be the most hidden. We distract ourselves with activities that make us feel important, productive, needed, validated. But here is something radical. What if you could sit still long enough to see that none of these impulses are actually you? In the Anatta teaching, the doctrine of non-self, the Buddha points out that thoughts, sensations, emotions arise and pass. They are not a permanent me. They are conditions unfolding. When distraction arises, instead of saying I am so distracted, what if you say distraction is arising? Feel the difference. I am distracted feels heavy, personal, fixed. Distraction is arising feels temporary, observable. This subtle shift creates space. And in that space, freedom begins. Let's try something practical. The next time you feel the urge to switch tasks, don't immediately act. Don't immediately suppress either. Take one conscious breath, then silently label what is happening. Restlessness, boredom, anxiety, curiosity. Just that. No analysis, no story. This is mindfulness in action. In the Five Hindrances described in early Buddhist teachings, distraction often appears as restlessness and worry, or as sensual desire. These are not sins. They are natural mental states that cloud clarity. The Buddha did not condemn them. He invited observation. When you observe restlessness closely, you may notice it is not solid. It pulses, it shifts, it intensifies, then softens. What if distraction is just energy without guidance? Energy is not the problem. Unseen energy becomes chaos. Seen energy becomes power. Another question: have you ever noticed that when you are fully present, deeply absorbed in something meaningful, distraction fades on its own? You didn't fight it away. You were simply engaged. Presence is not rigid concentration. It is intimacy with the moment. Sometimes we think mindfulness means forcing attention like a spotlight onto one thing, but often it's more like soft illumination, allowing experience to unfold without fragmentation. Let me tell you a small story. A man once asked a meditation teacher, "How do I stop my mind from wandering during meditation?" The teacher smiled and said, "Where does it wander to?" The man replied, "Work, memories, future plans." The teacher asked, "Are those places outside your mind?" The man paused. There is nowhere the mind can wander that is outside experience. The practice is not to eliminate wandering. The practice is to notice wandering and gently return. Return not with frustration, but with kindness. Harshness increases distraction. Kindness stabilizes attention. When you criticize yourself, "Why am I like this? I have no discipline," the mind contracts, tension rises, and tension seeks escape. When you respond with gentleness, restlessness is here, the mind relaxes. Relaxation supports clarity. You cannot bully yourself into presence. Let's talk about modern life for a moment. We live in an age designed for distraction. Notifications are engineered. Algorithms are optimized. Everything competes for attention. But external stimulation alone does not create inner fragmentation. It only amplifies what is already restless inside. Two people can sit in the same room with the same phone on the table. One feels constantly pulled. The other barely notices. The difference is not willpower. It is awareness of impulse. If you can see the impulse arise, you are no longer fully owned by it. In mindfulness practice, we train in something very simple: knowing what is happening while it is happening. If you are scrolling, know you are scrolling. If you are thinking, know you are thinking. If you are avoiding, know you are avoiding. This sounds almost too simple, but simplicity is powerful because distraction thrives in unconsciousness. When light enters, confusion weakens. Let's explore the body. Often distraction begins not in thought, but in sensation. A subtle tightness, a heaviness, a buzzing under the skin. We quickly interpret that sensation as, I need something. But what if you stayed with the sensation for 10 seconds? Feel it in the body. Is it warm, cold, expanding, contracting? In the Anapanasati Sutta, the discourse on mindfulness of breathing, awareness of the body and breath becomes the anchor, not to escape life, but to stabilize the mind. The breath is always here. It does not demand, it does not notify, it simply flows. When distraction pulls you outward, the breath brings you home. Try this now. Inhale slowly. Notice the air entering. Exhale gently. Notice the body softening. Nothing dramatic. Over time, you may discover something unexpected. Distraction is not a flaw, it is feedback. It shows you where craving lives. It shows you where fear hides. It shows you where meaning is unclear. If your work constantly triggers distraction, maybe there is misalignment. If conversations always pull you away, maybe there is avoidance of vulnerability. Mindfulness does not force you to endure what is harmful. It reveals truth so wise action can follow. Here is a deeper layer. Sometimes distraction protects us from existential discomfort, the discomfort of simply being. Silence can feel unsettling. Stillness can feel empty. Without constant input, we may confront loneliness, impermanence, uncertainty. The Buddha spoke often of dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness inherent in conditioned existence, not to depress us, but to encourage understanding. When we distract ourselves endlessly, we are often running from dukkha, but when we turn toward it gently, we discover it is workable. Sitting quietly, you might feel a wave of restlessness. Stay. Breathe. Notice it crest and fall. You might feel boredom. Stay. Breathe. Notice its texture. Over time, the mind learns discomfort is not fatal, and the urgency to escape softens. There is another subtle trap. Sometimes we distract ourselves with self-improvement. We consume content about productivity, mindfulness, optimization, but rarely sit and practice. Information can become sophisticated distraction. Ask yourself honestly, am I learning to avoid doing or learning to deepen being? There is no shame in this, just curiosity. The path is not about perfection, it is about awareness growing gradually. Think of training a puppy. If you yank harshly on the leash every time it wanders, it becomes anxious. If you gently guide it back again and again, it slowly learns. Your mind is not an enemy. It is untrained energy. Train it with patience. Let's return to the question from the beginning. What if distraction is not the enemy, but a messenger? Next time you feel pulled away from what matters, instead of immediately correcting yourself, try asking, what are you trying to tell me? Listen. Maybe you are exhausted. Maybe you are afraid. Maybe you need a short break. Maybe you are disconnected from purpose. Mindfulness does not mean rigid endurance. It means wise responsiveness. Sometimes the skillful action is to continue. Sometimes the skillful action is to rest. Sometimes the skillful action is to feel. Overcoming distraction does not mean eliminating every wandering thought. It means cultivating a mind that knows when it has wandered and knows how to return. return again, and again, and again. Each return strengthens awareness. Each gentle noticing rewires habit. You begin to experience moments of simple presence. Washing dishes, just washing dishes. Walking, just walking. Listening, just listening. These moments are not dramatic. They are quiet, but in their quiet, there is peace. And here is perhaps the most surprising truth. When you stop fighting distraction, it loses much of its power, because fighting is another form of agitation. Calm observation transforms agitation into understanding. Understanding dissolves confusion. Freedom grows naturally. So if today your mind feels scattered, don't add a second arrow of self-judgment. The Buddha once spoke of 2 arrows. The first arrow is unavoidable pain. The second arrow is our mental resistance. We cannot always prevent the first arrow, restlessness, difficulty, imperfection, but we can choose not to shoot the second. Be gentle with your wandering mind. Be curious about your impulses. Be patient with your practice. Overcoming distraction is not about becoming a machine of focus. It is about becoming intimate with your own experience. And intimacy requires honesty. Right now, as you listen, notice. Is your mind fully here? Has it drifted? If it has, can you simply smile and return? This is the practice, not tomorrow, not when life is calmer. Now, one breath at a time. Before we close, let me offer you a small daily experiment. Choose one ordinary activity each day. Drinking tea, brushing your teeth, opening a door. For that one activity, give it full attention. Feel the sensations. Notice the movements. Observe the mind. When it wanders, gently return. No pressure to be perfect. Just practice returning. Over weeks, you may notice something subtle but profound. Your mind becomes less reactive. Your impulses become more transparent. Your choices become more deliberate. And distraction no longer feels like a tyrant. It becomes a teacher. So, the next time you catch yourself drifting, instead of frustration, try gratitude. Thank you for showing me where my mind still seeks. Then breathe and come home. Overcoming distraction is not about conquering the mind. It is about understanding it so deeply that clinging loosens on its own. And when clinging loosens, attention rests naturally. Not forced, not strained. If this reflection resonated with you, carry it into your day. Notice the moments of pulling. Notice the moments of returning. This is how mindfulness grows, not in grand revelations, but in small, sincere acts of awareness. Thank you for walking this path of presence. Thank you for practicing even when it feels imperfect. Until next time, keep breathing, keep noticing, and keep returning to the quiet strength that is already within you. This is Daily Mindfulness Practice. And this moment, undistracted, awake, is always available.